Hi everyone and welcome to the Country Files. Today I'm very happy to be here with Linus from Solvilla. And of course the Country Files, I hope that you have maybe seen a few of our other videos before. What we would like to do is to dig into the different national countries. So let's say the main countries buying in Costa del Sol, people from those countries, and to look into how is actually the purchase process in those countries. So what kind of expectations does property buyer have when they come here? And that's why we're starting with Sweden today. And that's of course also why we have Linus. Welcome.
Yeah. Thank you. Happy to be here.
Good. So first of all, well, we know that you're with Solvilla, of course.
Yeah.
Maybe you can tell us a little bit more about yourself and your experience.
Sure. So my background is, I came here 5 years ago. I studied, in Sweden you need to study to become a real estate agent. So I did that in Sweden. And then I moved down to Marbella to work as an agent here. Started out at the Swedish or big Swedish real estate agency. And then 2.5 years ago I joined Solvilla. Been there.
Right. And are you working mainly with Swedish clientele, or is it a bit of?
I would say, yeah. We have buyers from different nationalities.
Yeah, of course.
But of course, I'm Swedish, so I work a lot with the Swedes, the Norwegian buyers, some Danish as well. So I tend to be more focused on the Nordic, Scandinavian buyers.
Yeah, okay. So well, let's start with that one then. So one difference, of course, is that in Spain, at least in Andalusia, we know that they actually introduced it in Valencia, some kind of license to be able to work as an intermediary or a broker in properties. But how is it in Sweden?
So in Sweden, you need to, in order to act as an agent, you need to study 2 years in university. So it's an actual degree to become a real estate agent.
And then you're actually also then part of an association.
Correct.
Fastighetsmäklarförbundet, is that what it's called?
Correct. And you have let's say a authority that are supervising or monitoring how you act as an agent. So it differs quite a lot from how you act as an agent here in Spain.
Yeah. And it can actually then mean, and I guess it has happened, that licensed, let's call it that, licensed agents in Sweden have their license removed.
Correct. Yeah.
And that's a different kind of responsibility.
Exactly. When you have more responsibilities, in Sweden, you're as the agent, you're responsible for the contracts, for the legal parts. So of course, that's a big difference from how it is here in Spain.
I'm not needed.
Exactly.
Basically.
Exactly. That's the thing. So we study a lot of law. I would say that's probably the main thing we're studying in Sweden. So unfortunately, I haven't had a lot of help of that here in Spain, but that's
you have the background
exactly.
and the perspective.
Yeah.
When it comes to that, so working with Swedish buyers, when they come to Costa del Sol or to Marbella, I think that's your main area, right?
Correct.
Do you need to talk about that, the differences in the roles with those clients?
Yeah, I think we need to first of all explain, because it's different, the process as well in buying, right? We don't have, for example, in Sweden, we don't have a reservation contract. We go normally straight to PPC. So that's a big point to touch early. So it's not deposit paid before you sign the official contract, let's say, a purchase contract.
Yeah.
So that I meet quite a lot. In let's say the legal part.
Yeah. So do you usually have a sit down, or is it part of your first conversations with a Swedish buyer to talk about that difference?
Yeah, I mentioned that quite early because it's important to know that here it's another step before you come to the purchase contract, and then we go into in Sweden you need to have all the documents. You need to present all the documentation on the properties. Here, let's say if you're a buyer's agent, you might not have all the documents of the listing. So that needs to be explained, that this is why we then sign the reservation contract. Then you have time to do DD, etc. You guys come in and
that's right.
the buyer.
So actually, when you're I'm Swedish also, of course. I guess everybody knows that now.
Yeah.
But in Sweden, if you're interested in property, you have let's say the dossier about that property, or you go online.
Yeah.
And we can actually mention, I think in Sweden there's only one main portal for properties as well, right?
Exactly. Yeah. It's one portal with I mean, since you work exclusive as well, it's not like here we have Idealista with a lot of duplicates maybe of the properties. In Sweden it's also regulated, so you can only put your exclusive listing on that portal, and everyone will find that information, and they will also upload all the documentation of the property.
Yeah.
So everything is very transparent.
We should maybe mention that there could be a few other portals as well.
Yeah.
But this one main one. We can agree. Right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So anyway, if I'm interested in a property in Sweden, I'll go online. I will probably find that property quite quickly.
Yeah.
I will see the actual address immediately, right?
Yeah.
Because it's always pinpointed on the map.
Exactly.
So there's full transparency about that.
Yeah.
That's not the case here in Solvilla, right? Usually
exactly.
You don't know where it is.
Correct.
And then you have the dossier. And in that dossier about the property in Sweden, what do you need to include in that? What kind of information do you have to give?
I mean, it depends. Because in apartments in Sweden you don't really buy the apartment. You don't own the apartment. You buy a share in an economic association.
That's right.
So then you need to provide the economy of the community, etc. In let's say a private property, houses, you need to provide all documentations about do you have any encumbrances or loans on the property that should be up there. Normally nowadays also you do all the inspection, you upload even that in order to get
technical inspection.
Exactly, technical inspection as well. You upload in order to speed up the process, so you don't, because otherwise you need to include, when you go into the private purchase contract, you need to include a subject to do the technical inspection, let's say.
Okay, so for villas, let's say, you already have all the legal information about the property. You have the technical information about the property, and most of the cases you also have an actually technical inspection already performed.
Exactly.
As well, maybe we should mention there's a questionnaire actually that you as a seller you need to fill in a questionnaire. Can you tell us about that?
Correct. No, normally when we list the property, you need to fill in. I mean, you get all the questions regarding documentation, etc. If you know there is any problems with the property, etc. You need to fill that in before you put your.
And then you're legally responsible for your answers in that questionnaire.
Exactly. You need to or bring up any problems. You need to bring them up to the potential buyer. Yeah. And that's as an agent, you need to do that as well. So let's say if we're selling a property and you know there's a land next to it and they might build on it in the future, or you have heard that okay they're going to build here, it could affect the view of the unit. You need to by law then tell the interested parties. Yeah, that's a big difference. Yeah, and so this transparency that we have in Sweden, and the expectations from all the clients that you have met, have you noticed this? That they assume that it's the same kind of system in Spain? Yeah. Or are they informed about that, or is it something that you always have to talk to them about? Yeah, you need to educate and inform them along the process, let's say. From the beginning they could have the same, at least that you as an agent have more responsibility in the legal part. Yeah. So we need to explain quite early the role of the lawyer down here and how it works. Yeah. And another one detail actually, you can tell us and the audience here. The title deeds here, we know in Spain, are signed at the notary's office in front of the notary. Yeah. The notary goes through the title deed, which is, at this point now there are more and more pages on the title deed for almost every year now. Yeah. And it's a big document. Yeah. And in Sweden, how do they actually sign or close the deal, let's say? Yeah, so normally in Sweden, I would say the most, you could do it at the bank, but I would say that the most normal or the normal way to do it is to meet at the agent's office, sitting down with buyer, and you need to be physical. I mean, both the buyer and the seller needs to be there, unless you have given someone a power of attorney to sign. And then meanwhile, everything is made digital. So the banks are standby. Nowadays they have a specific tool for this. So the seller's bank and the buyer's bank are standby. Meanwhile, you're signing the contract, you then upload this contract into that tool, and you transfer the money.
It's a very digital process.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we don't have the representatives of the bank coming to the notary as we have here in Spain.
You never have to go to the bank to collect the checks.
Exactly.
Hand it over to the seller at a point of signature of the title deed as well.
Correct.
So with that, of course, we have noticed that we have notaries in Sweden, of course, notarius publicus they are called, but they do something completely different in Sweden compared to Spain, where the notary has much more responsibility and a completely different role. Let's mention, I think that's quite interesting actually, the technical inspection. As you said, it's normal nowadays that you actually have the sellers, at least of a villa then I guess, already done the technical inspection and it's available when you go for the viewing already. Is that something that people, at least Swedish buyers that are interested in villa properties, and I know in Solvilla it's villas most of the time, right? Mainly, do they expect that the technical inspection is already prepared, or how do you?
No, I wouldn't say they expect it, but somehow they want to make. Obviously, not everyone is doing it, but quite a few buyers they want to do technical inspection of the house. That's normal. And then, of course, we need to find where to put that in a contract situation, etc. But I mean, it's a part of the process to explain to the buyers, right? The differences. I would say, let's say 50-50 has the expectations that, okay, maybe you should provide more information about the property, and some we need to then they trust maybe us as the agents and the lawyers to provide the DD.
Of course.
Exactly. So we need to then remind them to, okay, here you don't have the technical inspection done previously, so maybe you should do that before completing on the property.
I think one the experience that I have is that when it comes to the technical inspection, because in Sweden we always do it for the villas at least. I wasn't actually aware, I've been away for 5 years from Sweden, that you actually do it before even listing the property, let's say.
I mean, that's quite new.
That's quite new, right?
Exactly. So back when we were in Sweden, probably.
But then you almost remove, let's say, the renegotiation from the process, because the information is already there, and the price should then be set according and mitigate or include any problems in the technical inspection and how that affects the price. So what I have seen, well, in my experience here, is that when Swedish clients start to talk about the technical inspection, that they sometimes assume that we will do the technical inspection, and then of course, as in Sweden, we will have the right to either cancel even, or to at least reduce the price or renegotiate. And of course, they are not buying all the time from a Swedish seller. No. And that is maybe not what the seller presumes, that they will be the effect of the inspection. So I guess you need to just explain that, and then actually be very clear on why are you doing the technical inspection, and what do you expect will be the results, the outcome of that inspection.
And how do you put that in the contract in the right way and reflect that?
That's right. All right then. Let's go further in. I like it. It's fun. When it comes to price setting, how do you? What is the main difference you would say between Spain and Sweden?
I mean, here in Sweden everything is transparent, more or less. You can pinpoint. You go on. Okay, I want to be in a particular street. You pinpoint that, and you can see. Okay, these properties has been sold on this street. You're very particular on the square meters in Sweden.
Yes.
So then you will find out the square meter price, and you can apply that on the property, right? Here in Spain, it's not as transparent. So that's the thing needed to be explained to the Swedish buyer when they're looking here in Marbella.
They sort of expect that prices should be easily available for this community or this area or even this street.
Yeah, correct. And for them to maybe research, and then it's also, I mean, what we can see openly here is mainly the asking price.
Yeah.
But we rarely see the closing price, which we do in Sweden because everything's public.
I think actually, as a matter of fact, in Sweden, you can go into and find a certain property and see not only was it the asking price, you can see also when it was sold.
Yeah.
I don't know for how many years back, and the prices, the historical prices for that property.
Yeah.
Do you feel that Swedish clients? I mean, can you notice this when you're working with Swedish clients, that they have certain expectations of you, that you should be aware of the prices in certain areas, or do you have to rely on your experience, your own professionalism, and knowing, etc.?
I think in the beginning they might have, but then it's more about you explaining the experience and also how it works, right? But yeah, initially they might have the expectation that okay, you should know the square meter price here, but also how come that a certain community just opposite side of the street is this square meter price, and on this side it's totally different, because that's a big difference also from Sweden. I would say this market and the Swedish market here is maybe more driven by the complex itself or the community itself, what they have and what they offer, how exclusive that might be, and that could differ a lot in the prices. In Sweden, it's more the street, the location, how far is it from the central of Stockholm, or amenities, etc. And then it's quite it follows each other, the prices let's say in the different areas.
So it actually means that the knowledge of the individual agent here is much more important, I would say, than let's say compared to Sweden, because everybody has the information already of the prices. Yeah. So it's down to your experience in certain areas, certain kind of properties, and so on.
Exactly, the monitoring. Okay, what's the prices? What's the sold?
So it's important to find the right agent.
Yeah, correct.
For the right area. Yeah. Maybe we should mention also that how is the system in Sweden for valuations of properties compared to Spain?
Yeah. Same there. So it's also the agent itself who is doing the valuations
in Sweden.
In Sweden, correct. So that's I mean it's mainly, I would say, also the profession in Sweden. It's about getting the property, because we're listing it exclusive, right? So the meeting with the seller most often starts with, okay, do you need a valuation? That's just like the first point of contact. And then we go out. We can then, of course, everything is public, so we can look into the prices, square meter prices in the area, and we are the ones then providing the bank and the seller with the valuation of the property, which is a big difference from there in Spain.
Here in Spain, where we have the certified valuation companies, many times working with the banks, etc., to make the valuations. That is actually a difference.
That is,
and of course, maybe one last point, which can maybe be one of the most important ones, is that we don't have dual agency collaborations in Sweden. No. So how does it work in Sweden?
So in Sweden, as I mentioned before, you're exclusive as the agency. So the process is, after, let's say, we've given the valuation, they've decided to then sell. We list the property on the portal, upload all the information, then we have an open house. And that's not an open house for agents, because that's the most of the cases.
Only clients are coming.
Only clients are coming.
Here's the opposite. Only agents are coming.
Agents are coming. So it's the actual clients coming. And then, let's say, if you have it on a Saturday or a Sunday, then you start the process after they've seen if they're interested. You get the details, etc. And then you start a bidding or a bidding more on the property, which also bidding process, which is also transparent and public.
And actually, we can say, because me and my wife, we bought and sold a few properties in Sweden, and you're actually on your phone.
Yeah.
You can make a counter offer on your phone, and you're waiting.
It's quite thrilling.
Intensely, we're waiting to see if you won the bidding process or winning war or not, right?
Yeah.
And here the offers go through the agent, and then many times there's another agent involved as well.
Yeah.
And I have, at least from my point of view, I've seen that this system is so different than what people are used to in Sweden, that it can become a little bit frustrated because they are not in control, they don't understand, and they just expect that it should be transparent and easy.
Yeah.
Because it's actually a fact that after the bidding process is finalized in Sweden, you have the right to see the names of everyone involved in that process. Who made the bid, who made the counter offers, etc.
Yeah.
Which can be sometimes a bit of interesting reading.
Yeah.
But that's not like, it's not like that here.
No. And I mean, touching that as well, the exclusivity, I mean, that could be a big difference for the buyers when they're looking into properties here on portals, etc. Because they're going to see different ads with different agents who is having the property or not. They could think that's just as in Sweden. You have one portal, there's one agent having this listing. You should know all about the property, which might not be the case here in Spain.
Yeah, all right. Well, thank you very much, Linus, for helping us to explain the differences between Sweden and Spain when it comes to the purchase process. And I think we can summarize this by focusing on the transparency in Sweden is very different. Actually, the role of the agent in Sweden compared to Spain is very different. And the legal requirements for listings are also very different. You need to have the technical inspection, all the technical information, etc. And we can agree on, as you pointed out, that what you usually do is that you inform the clients about this so they can easily understand the new process here in Spain.
Yeah. Thank you for
Thanks
having
a lot.
me.
Thanks a lot.